The following entry was reconstructed from fragmented notebook pages, a corrupted voicemail, and partial audio recovered from a damaged recorder. These files document the night the forest responded. Welcome to the Black Creek Archives. I didn't plan to file another entry so soon. Not after what happened with the mirror. Not after seeing my reflection move on its own. And not after hearing a voice on the recording that didn't belong to anything human. But the forest, it isn't waiting anymore. And last night, for the first time since all of this began, it answered me. It started yesterday afternoon. I was cleaning up the living room, trying to ignore the strange footprints that had appeared in the dust again, my own, and another set that stopped inches from where I slept. My phone buzzed. A call. No number. No ID, just unknown caller. I shouldn't have answered. I know that. But something inside me whispered that I needed to. When I picked up, I didn't hear a voice. I heard wind, moving between trees, rustling pine needles, a groaning trunk, and under it, a faint, rhythmic tapping. The same tapping I'd heard on the roof. The call cut out. That was the moment I knew. Whatever was happening outside wasn't separate from me anymore. It was trying to get in. Night 1. The forest stood closer. Around 2:17 a.m., I woke to a familiar pressure in the air. Heavy, thick, like the atmosphere itself was holding its breath. I crept into the living room, not turning on any lights. The moon was enough. I peeked out the back window and felt my stomach drop. The tree line had moved again. Not just a few feet this time. Not even a dozen feet. The trees were right at the edge of my porch. Close enough that the branches brushed the railing. Close enough that they blocked the sky. Close enough that it felt like they were waiting for something. And at the center of them, something new. A gap, perfectly circular, just wide enough for a person to step through. An entrance, or an invitation. The whisper. I turned away from the window, panic rising in my chest. That's when I heard it, a whisper, right behind my ear. Not human, not warm, cold, dry, like dead leaves rubbing together. It said, "We can see you." I spun around. Nothing. No figure, no shadow. Just the cabin, dim and silent. But the whisper remained in the air like it had seeped into the walls. The camera footage. The shadow with eyes. I checked the footage from the camera I had set up earlier. At 2:17 a.m., the moment I woke up, the camera flickered violently. Lines tore across the screen. Pixels warped into swirling patterns. The image collapsed in on itself, like melting film. Then a shape appeared, a shadow standing in the living room. Tall, stretched, its head tilted. But this wasn't like the previous shadows. This one had eyes. They weren't glowing. They weren't bright. They were just visible. Small, reflective points like the eyes of a deer in the dark. And worse, they blinked, not in unison, as if each eye belonged to something different. Then the figure stepped toward the camera, closer, closer, until the image went black. When the camera resumed, the shadow was gone. But the interior wall behind where I sleep had a new mark, another symbol, the spiral. With 5 branches this time, it was growing, or multiplying, or evolving. I don't know which scares me more. The knock at the window around 4 a.m. After hours of silence, I heard a soft tapping on the window. Different from before. This wasn't random. It had shape. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap. A pattern. A message. Something was trying to communicate. I forced myself to look through the glass. The fog outside was thick, dense, like a white sea rolling through the trees. And then a shadow moved across the fog, not approaching, not retreating, just circling the cabin, slow, methodical, like the footsteps from before, but larger, heavier, aware. The forest talks back. The echo, the part I can barely write, the part I hope is some hallucination or misremembered moment, was the voice I heard next. It didn't come from inside, it came from outside, from within the forest, echoing between the trees, repeating my own voice. Are you still there? The same words I had spoken 3 nights ago into an empty room while checking the mirror. The forest was echoing me, mimicking me, learning me. It wasn't just watching now, it was practicing. The final moment. Something answered. Right before sunrise, when the sky had just begun to lighten, the forest fell completely silent. Then, with a long, slow creak of bending branches, the trees at the center of the circular gap shifted aside, just enough for something to step through. I didn't see a figure, not clearly, just a tall, impossibly thin silhouette, like the outline of a shadow before the body that should cast it. It leaned slightly forward, and in a dry, layered whisper, matching my voice but wrong, it said, "It's your turn to come outside." I backed away from the window, my heart pounding, every instinct telling me not to look again. When I finally gathered the courage to check, the silhouette was gone, but the trees, they hadn't moved back. Closing note. I don't know how much longer I can stay here. Whatever this is, it's no longer content watching from the woods. It wants me to step outside. It wants me to answer. If I do, I'm not sure there will be an entry number 06. But if I don't, I'm afraid it might come inside. If the forest has ever whispered your name, you're part of the archives now. Subscribe before the next entry surfaces.